there's not guardrails in the sense of, man, we don't want to feel like dirty swingers because we went on a date this week and we went to the club this weekend, or we don't want to feel like posers because we haven't done anything for 9 months. Like, it's just whatever feels right to us at the time.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 140. We're Finn and Emma, and today we are talking with Jane and Jay, who have a wonderful story.
Not only that, but they're putting some awesome content out into the world. Jane draws up little comics.
Yeah.
And she does these fun comics of their story, bloopers they've had, maybe even bloopers that people have talked about on our show. And it's awesome because they're super sex positive, super body positive.
She's found a really unique way to document their journey through drawings.
So links to all of her work are in the show notes. Check that out.
It's called Swing Fashions.
It's called Swing Fashions. They're on Twitter. They're on Blogspot, I believe.
Yeah.
So check them out and have a listen to their story. Talk a lot about communication, the evolution of their communication.
No, they've had a really awesome journey.
And before we jump into it, we just want to say a couple of thank yous to people. So first of all, thank you to Jane and Jay, but thank you as well to all 135-ish, 145 something, if you count Focus Fridays.
Yeah, I'd say close to probably probably around 140, 150.
We should have counted this up.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, somewhere in the 140 range.
The point is, thank you to everybody who's come on and shared your story. Everybody who has impacted somebody else along the way. We get emails all the time saying, thank you so much for this story. These people, they said something that hit home to me. And I would say a good chunk of our guests come on and say, my story's pretty boring. No one's going to like it. It's not that special. And then we get an email about it. So just thank you to everybody who
this show would not be what it is without all of you. And we just can't thank you enough because we honestly, for a little while, thought we might run out of people, but we're so thankful that everyone wants to share their story.
Yeah. So if you're out there thinking, I want to help people, or, hey, this story, this show, these people's stories have helped me, you can always give back by reaching out to us on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. You can come on the show, share your story, and help out a bunch of people yourself.
Yes.
So we highly recommend it. The hosts are cool. You'll have a great time. Also, wanted to say a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you're not sure what Patreon is, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on Patreon button at the top, and you'll learn all about the awesome, incredible, fantastic, amazing community
that
we've built with awesome, fantastic, amazing, incredible people.
Yes.
Who show up every month and every day to help and support each other. And it's super diverse and we love it. So thank you to all of you who are helping make that a reality.
Yeah. And just a few logistical things. Our next Patreon Q&A is going to be on Wednesday, August 26th. That's next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern and then again at 9 p.m. Pacific. And then we also will have another women's discussion group call in September. The date has not been set yet, but all information will be posted in Patreon.
And if you're looking for a community and you don't want to join Patreon, no worries. We've got another virtual speed meet and greet coming up this weekend.
This Saturday night. So if you don't have any plans, or even if you do have plans, scratch those plans.
Yeah, cancel them. Tell your parents, tell your in-laws, we're not coming.
Yeah.
Finn and Emma having a virtual meet and greet.
Right. So Saturday night from 10:30 to 12:30 a.m. Eastern time. So
Hold on, 10:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m.
Yes.
Okay.
At night.
Eastern time.
We wanted to do it later so that the people on the West Coast have a chance to join as well. So please come join us. It's a blast. And we're actually going to have a little excerpt right here in just a second of somebody that was on the last one.
Actually, he's been on all of them.
That's true.
So you can take his word to the bank.
If you're wondering if the Normalizing Non-Monogamy meet and greet is for you, you can't tell until you actually tune in and find out. But my experience is it's fun. You find a sense of community and you get to know people who have similar non-standard interests. And it's great. You should try it.
And we're back. A little early for that, but we should mention that this is August 22nd is the date of this meet and greet.
This
So
Saturday.
If you missed it, if you're listening on August 23rd and you're bummed, there will be another one.
Yes, we will have another one, and the date will be announced very soon.
So please join us. We will see you. The cost is $10, and you can find out how to join by going to our website and clicking on the meet and greet tab or in your podcast player, show notes. Everything is there. We'd love to see you there on Saturday.
NormalizingNonMonogamy.com, just in case you forgot.
And real quick, before we jump into the show, one last final thing. We want to say huge thank you to Alt Playground, the sponsor of today's show. They are pumping out all sorts of new features, and we're just going to list a couple of them of our favorites.
Communities is one of them. So, and if you're a podcaster, a club or event host, or any other type of event planner, I guess you'd say, you can have a community, and anybody who's on the platform, come join the communities. It's a great place to network and meet lots of fun people.
If you're a conference, maybe you're hosting a conference. This year it's probably a digital conference.
Yes.
But there's tons of events on there for all of your conference needs. For example, Poly Dallas Millennium, if you remember the roundtable discussion we did a little while back, hosted by Ruby Johnson, her conference is on there. And yeah, so check that out.
Yes. And finally, but not all, is forums.
Finally, but not all.
Meaning there's a lot more than just forums, but forums we also wanted to touch on. There's a bunch of information on topics that range from, honestly,
all the topics in the forums.
Yes.
We really nailed it on the forums. We're going to leave it in. We're going to keep rolling because
I was going to try to go down the road of specific articles, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
You're not. So if you're interested, and you definitely should be, head over to altplayground.net, sign up. You can also go to our website, click on the links there under the resources page or on the home page. And yeah, we'd love it if you did help support them and the change that they're bringing to the online non-monogamous dating world.
Yes. And now,
one final thing. What? I just want to say thank you, listener, for putting up with us. We appreciate it.
Yes.
We love to say thank you to everybody, and we could make these intros 50 minutes long, but I think you'd hate that. So we will go.
We do try to keep them a reasonable amount of time, but realize also that we want to get through a bunch of announcements.
And honestly, part of this is we're really trying to make this show about community. And we don't know any better way to put that out there other than announcing the community stuff at the beginning. So if you're fed up, send us an email. Let us know a better way to do it. And we will definitely take it into consideration.
Yes.
Also, if you're not fed up, please let us know that we're doing a great job. And
you're okay with this.
And you love us long time. Okay. I will shut up now. Thank you. And enjoy this discussion.
With Jane and Jay.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Jane and Jay. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening to chat with us. We're excited to talk to you, learn a little more about who you are, and promote some of the fun work you do. So maybe with that, do you mind introducing yourselves?
Sure. Thank you. We're so happy to be chatting with you guys tonight. I'm Jane, and I'm married to Jay. 11 years now. We live in Florida. And I'm in my early 40s, and he's in his mid 40s. Yeah.
So old, I can't hear so good. I need you to, what? What are we doing? What's happening on this computer?
Age is all relative.
So thank you so much for having us. So we'll set the table a little because we're celebrating. So this makes it fun that we get to talk to you over a celebration. We realized both through Facebook memories of all things and our failing memories that we have been in the lifestyle for 7 years as of 4 days ago.
Wow!
So,
congratulations.
And I think everybody knows that 7 is the big anniversary in the lifestyle. So It's
Absolutely.
a big deal. We're kind of a big deal about this.
No, and it's interesting that Facebook knows that, but we don't have to go down that road. But
It's well, you know, and I hope we talk about it because it's fun. But like our first exploration night was at we decided after a multitude of wine and drinks at a restaurant out of town, and the pictures that were on Facebook were very oh, this is such a great celebration, and this is so wonderful and so fun. And you can slowly see in the pictures we posted how like there's a little glassy eye, and then we were ready to make some questionable decisions.
Well, maybe take us back 7 years ago, or maybe the conversation started before that. Like what was the lead up to this exploration, and how did we get here?
I think the origin story is always super exciting, and Jane tells it best. Since I don't know if we're rare, but it feels rare sometimes. Like she's the bus driver on this one. I'm just an innocent young man who was corrupted.
Yeah, I hear you.
So yes, years before I met Jay, I was working at a company where I had to travel a lot, and it was kind of a boys' club too. There were a lot of lots of men that were my coworkers. And one night on a trip, I was away for about 2 weeks with this group of predominantly men. I did a not great thing. I had like kind of a one night thing with one of my married coworkers. I was single, but I knew he was married. And I thought that was it. After the fact, he felt really guilty. So he went home and told his wife. But instead of her wanting to murder me and divorce him, she said, "Oh gosh, things have been really stale for us. I'm really kind of bored too. And how can we explore this?" So then they started whatever their non-monogamy journey became. And they ended up going to, they lived near a pretty well-known swinger club. And so they started going to it. And I guess as I got more experience, they reached out to me because they wanted a unicorn, which wasn't really my thing at the time. I consider myself lifestyle straight, but just, I was in my 20s then. The thought of I didn't even know what it was, but he would call me and tell me about how great swinging was and how great the club was. And it sounded really fun and interesting. And so I put a pin in it, and it's something I always kind of thought about, but the timing wasn't right then. So when you and I got married several years, probably at least 5 years after that, and then this happened 4 years into our marriage.
4 years.
4 years into our marriage. So prior to that, though, I was telling him about the stories that this man would tell me and how hot it was, and it led to some fun conversations in the bedroom. And I guess I kept bringing it up. And so finally he realized that there was a club near where the restaurant was that we were going to have dinner. And so we just kind of on a lark said, well, let's go after dinner. And after enough wine, we became brave enough to actually make that decision. And we went.
I think it was, that night was the intersection of a lot of things. A lot of dominoes had to fall into place that evening, or we would have missed the opportunity altogether. So, we had just moved to a new city. We don't have children, and we were at a point in our lives where a lot of our longtime friends were having kids. So we had felt like there was this like gap of fun and friends. Like there was this void of all of our closest friends are now have this bond about their kids and the kids' journeys, and we don't have anything like that. So we were kind of on a mission unrelated to the lifestyle to find, adult couples that their whole universe wasn't just having children, like that they could be interesting and maybe sexy, but just fun and, want to have a glass of wine, or want to go to a sporting event, or want to check out a brewery, or go for a hike, or whatever it is. We felt like a lot of our traditional friends, 7 years ago, were falling into this other bucket. So we've got that thought in one hand. We've got Dirty Mouth McGee over here on the other hand, who's telling me tales of the swinging lifestyle, and we're having a sexy, wonderful dinner, and I don't know who's to blame. We're going to blame it on the alcohol that we did a little phone Google and found out we were stumbling distance to a local club in that city. And I think what was, again, there were so many things that had to go right for us to be where we are today, and not go in and have a freak out, have a meltdown, feel, any of the weird feelings that an unprepared couple would. Now that we've been in this for a little while, like, we've seen those first visits go sideways for people that, haven't properly mentally prepared. And that was us. Like, we were definitely unprepared for what we saw and what we experienced that night. But there was, the club had a great sort of like, come in, get a tour. We were in a city that, I'm not trying to be mysterious. We were in Nashville. I'm trying, I don't know if we want to call out clubs specifically, but they had really strict rules. And it was the rules that were very protective of the lady clientele, which gave us just this like immediate, like, okay, like, Jane's been topless on the beach before. Like, if this is what this is going to be, like, we're going to fool around and make out and see some hot live porn or whatever it is. Like, we felt really safe. And that, we tell people that one night gave us months of like bedroom chatter. And if it was gasoline, that night could have driven me from Florida to California. Like, it was enough. It was enough juice to keep it rolling. So, so that's sort of the long-winded origin story, if we didn't beat that to death.
No, it's perfect. And I think, so to clarify though, Jane, you never did end up fooling around with that couple as sort of their unicorn. You just kind of got the secondhand stories from your coworker, and that was enough to sort of set you on the track to thinking about it, learning about it a little bit, and then talking about it with Jay.
Exactly. Yes. So he piqued my interest in the swinging lifestyle without me wanting to. They lived out of state. There was a lot of things at play there. That scenario wasn't for me, but the idea of a club sounded very sexy, and he really topped it up in a way that there was no way our first visit to a club could have lived up to the expectation. And while our first visit was fun and interesting, we had set our expectations up pretty high, and it fell short.
Yeah, I want to know, where are these guardian angel people that when you go to a club for the first time are like, here, we're going to put our arm around you and protect you from weirdos and tell you what all the code words and all the language and everything means, because we didn't get that. Yeah. And that's what the way it was sort of presented to Jane was, we showed up and people came over and they explained what what we do and what we don't, and how to get out of a situation or tell people you're uncomfortable. I mean, all of the things you want and you hope if we were replaying it. And we got a really nice tour. Again, they put great parameters out there, but we at this particular club, we joke that there's like this witching hour where everybody immediately we're like dancing, and it's time for the fucking. So the whole floor clears out and everybody disappears into their respective group room or private rooms or watching or whatever it is, and we were still sitting at a two-top table on the edge of an empty dance floor. And P.S., it's BYOB, as most are. We had quite enough to drink, but we sat there sipping Coke and Diet Coke. Like, so I wonder what's going on now? Like,
So like the whole place just emptied out, basically. Well, it didn't empty out.
You could set your watch by it.
Their playrooms in that particular club were all upstairs, so everybody was up there except for us, and we showed up kind of right before that happened. But yes, we were told that if you're a new couple, people can tell, and they'll be extra nice to you, and they'll share booze with you, and that never happened. We had a nice time, and I don't think we met anybody that first time.
Oh, I don't think we spoke to anybody. Like, oh no. I mean, we definitely had the deer in headlight, like very, very naive and young, like face bright-eyed. We were giving off all the signals, but again, to Jane's point, I think at that point in the evening, decisions had been made. Yeah. Commitments were locked in. No one was looking to be a mentor. They were looking to, wrap up the evening. So we, but again, the story continues, briefly that they had a very cool, like, watch and be watched room, and we went and locked the door and had a sexy, exciting time for ourselves. And we, people peeked in and watched, and and all of that was like feeding this, for me, like uncharted territory of like what else is out there and what you could expect. So we left with what I would say in retrospect was kind of an interesting idea of what a club experience is. Not good, bad, or right or wrong, just interesting, as now we've been to, 7 clubs in multiple states, and we have a local club that we enjoy very much. And if somehow 7 years ago me would say, hey, what's it like now? And I told me, my brain would melt. They're like, that's what happens? Oh, and it's not even that crazy. It's just like all we had was these little glimpses of what was happening.
I think it's kind of like the luck of the draw when you, like, for your first visit, and also the timing of when you go and what club you go to. So there's a lot of factors that go into whether you get that, like, a couple or a couple of couples that will kind of take you under their wing.
Well, and it doesn't sound like you said, it didn't sound like it was a bad experience. It was just very different from how it was explained to Jane, and that what you were sort of expecting wasn't what you got. But at the end of the night, like, you had fun, you had a really great experience together, and like definitely opened up a lot of conversation and opened the minds up a little bit.
100%. I think that's a great way to look at it. But again, just conversationally, and we've had this conversation, at dinners before, like, how many people roll those dice or, again, aren't properly prepared and have a bad experience. And it's kind of heartbreaking that, that there isn't, that there's not a, wear a pin, put a flower on your lapel. It's my first time. Somebody tell me what's going on here. What's happening? And then somebody should come out right up to some of the guys and be like, keep your hands to yourself. Like, that's, you're new. You should know that.
Right. Well, no, it's a great point that, there's probably a large number of people out there who have said, we're going to give it a try. And there is a bad experience that comes after that, and they never come back. And whether it's at a club or they met somebody or whatever the circumstances are. And it's disheartening, but it's good to hear that yours wasn't that way. And I maybe was curious, leading up to you going there, were there things that you were scared of? What were your concerns about, like, taking this leap into the world of swinging?
I think that first night we were just excited to try something new. I don't think that our fears and trepidation really threw until later on, once we dove in a little deeper. And then it was more figuring out how to communicate with each other, because for the first few years of our marriage, I didn't know it, but we were terrible at communicating, and we learned that through the lifestyle. And initially we were going to be voyeurs and exhibitionists, and we were afraid to take a leap into doing anything more than that. And ultimately, of course, that did happen. But we had a lot of conversations leading up to it. And I remember before we would go anywhere for the first, I don't know, probably or so, we would always come up with all of these rules and scenarios, and we try to play them out in our head and say, oh, well, if this happens, or if I call you by your middle name or whatever, if I pull on my ear, it never worked. Everything we thought was going to happen didn't pan out the way we thought. And the few times one of us tried one of our password things, the other one was oblivious because it was not something that we do. So we learned pretty quickly that we just have to be upfront. If there's a couple I'm not interested in, or I say, hey, like they're nice, but no, we're not moving this forward. And the same thing.
Yeah, I think those are good points. I also think that for that first experience, at least speak for myself, ignorant bliss. Like I had no context other than small pieces of January's, which were already in hand and mostly told, after a few drinks or when we were feeling sexy. So it's not like I was taking that as a study guide. It was more hot anecdotal. So if I would have thought it through with clear eyes, I don't know that we would have ever even gone, or we would have overthought it so much there was no possibility for it to be good, because you've done so much advanced groundwork that if anything doesn't go to your liking or your expectation, you're like, we got to get out, we got to pull out. So pull out, sorry. So I think that the impulsiveness of the moment was a lot of the saving grace for why we left. I mean, again, we left with nothing but positive mojo from it. It's very different from what a more savvy swinger would have experienced. And I think it's a testament, to you guys and some of the great podcasters out there. I think people that would start now have so many more resources for real world stories. Like what were we going to do otherwise? Like I heard a rumor somebody down the road was a swinger. Should I have just knocked on their door and said what to expect? Like, or get into a Reddit thread or a Yahoo chat room and be like, what should we do when we get there, man? Person I don't know. So, it's again, I think that there was a lot of fortune that really shined on us to help us ease into it, and we very much did ease into it. So
So I was curious, what was the trajectory after that first night going to the club? You kind of touched on, you said like our plan was just to be voyeurs or exhibitionists, but what did it look like after that first night, in the next couple weeks, months, years?
Right.
Sure. I think the best part of that is that there was a major, and again, I never pretend to know what's right for anyone else, but what was right for us was not striking while the iron was still hot. Like we used those moments in our personal lives, in our bedroom, to like, can you believe that happened? You believe you did that? Like it would go from being in awe of Jane being so brave to how sexy I thought it was. And it just made for like these really hot, intimate private moments. And it's not an exaggeration to say we went months without, obviously we were thinking about it, but I were even talking about the possibility of going back. And again, for me, the way my work life is, sometimes it's just not a possibility anyway. I work a lot and then have some time to ourselves. So when that carousel came back around and we were ready to try it again, we were a little more prepared, I think.
Yeah. So he came to me one day. He texted me. He's like, or emailed me, check out this website, and it's one of the swinger dating websites. And so we made a profile, and we hate our names on that website. So
It's like a tattoo. You're stuck with it for life.
Yeah. There's no going back.
Lifetime membership.
Yeah. They need to make it a feature to change your username.
I would pay for that possibility. If you make it a bad joke, you are stuck with said bad joke.
Yeah. So we started with that. And then when you're on the website, it promotes some things. And we learned about both Desire Resort and swinger cruises, which, and so in our first year, did we do Desire first or the cruise first?
No, we did the cruise first.
Okay. So we, within, because that was January?
January?
Yeah. So within 6 months, we booked a cruise, and we had done very little between the club visit and the cruise. We might have gone on a date. And in fact, we went on a date with a couple, and we told them we were going on a cruise, and they're like, oh my goodness, we need to have a date with you to really explain what to expect so you're not freaked out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you kind of jumped right in.
Like 0 to 100 and like really quick. And even if you're not doing anything, like a cruise is like kind of
all encompassing experience.
There's no getting off. Like you don't just.
It's
leave.
true.
Fun.
It's I mean, but again, from our perspective, in our 30s, no kids. We had lived in Florida for a long time, even though we aren't in Florida at the time. So cruises were kind of a way of life. There wasn't much of an allure of oh my gosh, let's go on a cruise. It was more like we've gone on a bunch of cruises and they kind of suck. But here's a cruise where she can be topless. There's no kids or naked. And, everybody, that the sort of some of that anecdotal information was it's like spring break for adults, party, this. And by the way, whatever you're comfortable with, which is 100% true. We never, and now we've gone on 6 or 7 cruises. We were trying to think of it earlier when we knew we were going to talk to you, because we're huge advocates for them. I think that in all of them, we've never felt pressured. We've run into every type of swinger that we're aware of, and
not swinger.
Yeah, and not swinger, and
nudists,
yep.
And just polyamory. Like there's the whole non-monogamy spectrum, and then some folks that just like adult vacations without children and just enjoy the vibe.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I think maybe the idea of a cruise could be a little intimidating, right? Because it's not like going to a club where you're like, well, this wasn't for us. We're just going to leave. There's no like, well, this cruise isn't for us. We're just going to get off. Like you don't just get off the boat whenever you want.
The thing is, though, the cruise, there are a lot of different options. Like you can go to certain bars or restaurants or just lounge by the pool or just hang out in your room or like there, at least it's a, there. And to your point, you can't get away, but you can find some other things to do.
And I would make the argument that there's a lot more to do on a cruise non-lifestyle than there is at a Desire or Hedonism, in my opinion, because they're so sexual centric. I'm making up words. Do what I want. But there's and I mean, and again, pick your poison. But what are you after? What are you hoping to achieve? Like we've met people on cruises that are like, I'll never be on a cruise again. I want to be able to have sex wherever I want, whenever I want. And that was not cruise life, which is, again, what made it sort of appealing to us was, you're going to be by the pool and you might be naked, you might not, but, that's a no sex area. So it was, again, for newbies that were diving in head first, it still felt safe. It still felt like there was some sense of normalcy there.
Right.
We were, active on the website at the time, and they had a little group for folks that were cruising, and I made a few friends in that group, and they some of them had been on these cruises before, and they gave us a lot of really great advice. So in turn, we try to do the same if there's ever cruises again. We had to move one already, so we have 2 booked right now, but we'll see. But in return, I always will share, tips and advice for folks that are going to go on a cruise, because there's a few little things that make it a better experience. But we always find time to spend with just each other. One night at least, we'll go to dinner, just the 2 of us. One of the excursion days, usually we'll do something alone just to take a break. And I mean, my theory is if you enjoy a regular cruise, for us, this one is even better because we enjoy socializing and meeting folks, and everyone on these cruises, no matter what their non-monogamous or situation, whatever it may be, they're pretty much there to have fun and to make friends. You know, on a traditional vacation, folks tend to stay within their family group or within whatever group they're traveling with. Whereas on lifestyle vacations, it's much easier to make friends because everybody's there just to have fun and make connections for the most part.
Right. So on the cruise, did you hold to the voyeur and exhibition rule, or did you move into
rule is such an ugly word.
strategy? Strategy.
My other question I was going to ask you is if you have any other tips, maybe at the end of this we can circle back and just
do some cruise tips.
Yeah, do some cruise tips at the end if anyone's curious.
I hope we get a commission on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You make 100% commission on all the tips.
So as far as holding the line, one lesson I learned, and this is not about cruising, this is about being a grown-up. I was very guilty of like overindulging on day one. Like it was mainly like to cut the nerves, but you're like, oh, I'll get a drink package, and why? So we would party pretty hard, and night one, it was out the window.
Yes. And
her fault, by the way. Like,
yes,
I was an innocent bystander. I had to get to church in the morning, and I was doing some volunteer work later, so I was very focused on that.
So we made some friends by the pool that day, and we were trying to do everything in the first day. And so we ended up checking out the playroom with them. And one of them was like, we call him the conductor, because he was very like, you two do this and you two do that. And everybody in this group was soft swap. And so we had fun, but I felt a little unsatisfied at the end. Not that soft swap can't be satisfying, but this particular experience, I didn't like being told what to do, and it was new, and there were too many people, and two of the guys didn't get along. It was very awkward. So we ended up, I was like, I'm not ready to go to bed. It's late. So we ended up going to the hot tub, where we met a couple that we both really enjoyed. And we did the quintessential swinger full swap first experience. It wasn't in the hot tub, but it started from time in the hot tub, because that's not allowed on the cruise. If it was allowed, it would have happened in the hot tub. So we were connecting with them, and it got so late, and we were both having our own separate conversations. He was talking to the lovely woman, and I was with the guy that reminded me of all the guys I dated in college. So it was perfect. And I guess he and her were talking about where they are in the lifestyle, what we do, what we don't do. And me and my friend were making out. So he tells him, are you sure you guys aren't full swap?
I'm like, absolutely. Listen, we have some code words. I am, my head's on a pivot. My ears are open, so we're still safe. And she's like, I think they're trying to eat each other's faces. Maybe we should take this party back to somebody's room. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going with the flow, feeling it. I mean, it was super hot. It was, again, like we have been so fortunate that especially in our early experiences, that, there's been a couple times it's like right people, right time. And they were nice, and, took the time to say, hey, if this isn't right for you, like, no pressure, don't freak out. We'll catch up with you later. But like the moment was just like, we were in the moment, and, not to take anything away from it, but it's a 6-day cruise. And that was our only full swap experience, because again, like for us, it was like that was the fuel that kept us locked in our bedroom for a few days on the cruise. Like, can you believe we did that? We are so kick-ass.
So you really did do everything. You checked all the boxes in the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, there's always the awkwardness after, like, the thing about that was we're on the cruise with this couple and they knew that they were the first full swap couple for us. And I didn't know how not to be like a weird, awkward, like I felt like a high school student. Every time I saw them, I was like, oh, hi. Nothing happened after that, mainly because I didn't know how to act when I was stuck with folks for 5 more days after the sexy experience. So live and learn. But we didn't miss anything. We were very happy with that experience. And it led to a lot of other really fun ones and a number of vacations. Cruising is probably our favorite. Mm-hmm. And we've gone on it to Desire and Tahito. So we've kind of done a lot of the lifestyle vacations that are out there.
Right. So I was curious, leading up to the cruise, had you decided on this cruise, we're going to just take the experiences as they come, or were you still of the mindset that we're not going to soft swap or full swap? Like, this journey for us is still going to be a voyeur exhibition. And I know we called it a rule earlier, but like, had you discussed like what might happen on the trip?
I think prior to the cruise, we did go to the club. Wasn't Valentine's Day before the cruise?
Sounds right. No, Valentine's Day would have been after. It would have been New Year's Eve. Yes.
We had we met a nice couple that we really connected with, and so we had a few like kind of very soft swap experiences with them. I think
very means something different to you than everybody else that's listening. I would call them intense soft swap experiences.
It was just anal. It was fine.
Yeah, I was like, in 6 countries we're married to them.
Yeah, so no, we had crossed that line and had actually had an experience with a couple before the cruise. But we, as I shared earlier, we would sit and game plan and come up with all of these scenarios that we thought would happen, and it never happened. So it just taught us that we have to really talk to each other before the moment and talk to each other afterwards. And the one thing that came from that particular cruise, and I think it's still pretty much a rule for us, is before anything happens, like before kissing or any sort of play, we need to check in with each other, particularly if we're all hanging out together and something happens, that's fine. But there was a time where he left. He was gone for like an hour, or not even an hour. He was gone for like 10 minutes. He went back to the room to grab something, and somebody was inviting me to play with them, and it felt weird, and I didn't. And so that's kind of our one thing, is we don't let things happen when there's not an understanding between the two of us that it might happen. And that kind of stemmed from that particular trip with the Canadians.
I also think, there's just some things that come with experience and time. Like it is significantly less cumbersome than that now. Like, it's really, if like, I know if she's having a nice time and connecting with somebody, and I think she knows that for me as well, to the point of now it would be like, hey, Jay, I can tell you guys are having a great time, but there's just not a lot of chemistry over here. So I don't want it to get weird later. Like, let's sort out, what how we want to handle it, which, like, sort of jumps over the, circling back and having a, kind of a clunky conversation. It becomes so much more about vibe and body language. And I believe that that's where we are at this stage. But yeah, I think it's a miracle that we meet and hook up with anybody, is really the moral. It is a Christmas miracle, because we are so awkward when passion kicks in. Like, I believe, not speaking for both of us, but we tend to be like awkward and dorky, and we miss, like we're not good at like the more like physical flirting, and we never know when the timing is right. And in most cases, when something happens, we're like, oh, we really liked you guys. We didn't know. And they're like, we have been trying to make something happen for hours. You guys are exhausting. I'm like, yes, that is us. That should be our screen name. We will be exhausting. And for other good reasons.
Okay, well, I mean, we can relate to that. So
yes,
you're not alone. And I think there's probably a 500,000, based on our listenership, probably about 500,000 people listening that say, yeah, that's us too. Like, it's
sex is awkward between two people. And when you add more than that, it's extra awkward.
Yeah,
that's true.
And reading cues and like not wanting to offend anybody and like trying to walk that line and make sure everyone's comfortable. And like, you just need to use your words, but that's not always easy either.
No.
It's always tough. Like, and again, I'll speak for me because I think Jane is far more savvy and aware at that time. But like, if we're dancing, if we're, having drinks at a bar, or if something is socially engaging, I'm like, hey, I don't want to ruin this by talking about what we're, hey, what do you, usually the what are you into conversation is fun and kind of natural, but like, what are you doing later? Or, are you checking out my wife's? Let's talk about this. There's no, if we're pretending we have experience, that's the thing we haven't figured is how to transition well.
The only thing we figured out is Jay likes to call me the hammer because if it's not working out, then I'm the one that has to politely decline. So that's our dynamic.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice of him to offload that responsibility on you.
Oh no, she revels in it.
Oh, okay.
Not to be mean. She's just like, it's more like, I don't want to waste their time either. Like, as out of fairness, like if it's not going somewhere, but someone's like, hey, we're hanging out with you because we assume we're going to close out the night together. Jane's like, well, then that would be a poor use of your time. So we were hanging out with you because we were having fun. We're either not there yet, or it may not get there. So if that's why you're here now, she'll be very quick to put the kibosh on that. But
yeah, we like to say, and we stole this from somebody else, but we're full swap but low mileage. Right. So we despite what the comic might make it seem like, certainly we have had a lot of fun experiences, but we more often than not, when we go on a vacation or go to a club, it's just he and I. We've gone whole cruises without connecting, without having any play with anybody beyond us. So we have a lot of fun together. So if it's not going to be even better than that, then it's not worth it. And it's still, we love the social aspect of meeting folks and having lots of fun conversations. The fact that you can meet folks for the first time and then talk about your sex life with them, you can't do that in the real world. And it's awesome. So we revel in that, and we've made lifelong friends along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that is something that, maybe somebody that's brand new listening thinks, well, they went club, cruise ship, and now they do this every single weekend with every couple they meet. And to point out that, like, that's just not the reality, right? And maybe it is for some people, and that's great, but that doesn't mean that's what it has to be. And that you can go huge stretches without meeting anybody else, or you meet them and you have fun, but it's not a sexual meeting.
Yes,
absolutely. And we feel like, as you look back, with clear eyes, that, we'll very easily go 6, 7, 8, 9 months without doing anything that the majority of people would consider lifestyle. Maybe just having drinks with some people in the lifestyle, but nothing beyond that. But then we may go a month or two and go to the club 3 or 4 times, just because, the mood strikes and, we've got good friends there, or there's people we really want to see, or we had a great time. Like we are classic, like Chasers of the Dragon. Like this night was so hot, we are coming back tomorrow. And it doesn't work out that way. But that's what I think is one of my favorite things about us. Our decision making is like there's not guardrails in the sense of, man, we don't want to feel like dirty swingers because we went on a date this week and we went to the club this weekend, or we don't want to feel like posers because we haven't done anything for 9 months. So, like, it's just whatever feels right to us at the time. And when quarantine and COVID is not a real thing, I can't wait to get to the club and shake the tail feathers and be flirty and fun. But that may not have been the case if this was, a normal 5-month, stint.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you run into hurdles such as jealousy or any other hurdles that you've experienced over the last 7 years?
I would not say we ever had a jealousy moment. I think if you would call, hurdles or speed bumps, I think the only things that, and your memory is much longer and better. So I will just say one thing that, anything that's happened that you would be like, oh, that wasn't as fun as it could have been, should have been, would have been if we didn't do it. We haven't repeated any mistakes. We've had an experience where we didn't feel a great connection, but we went along with it because we were new in it, and the people involved were really nice, and it just we just didn't have that chemistry, and we're like, okay, we're not going to do that again. Like, we're going to be more honest, because that wasn't their fault. Like, they didn't pressure us. They weren't bad people. It just, we didn't feel the sparks. And then the next thing we knew, we had spent hours and we're like, oh my gosh, like we didn't even really think it through. It just happened. And, we sort of, reconned afterwards and said, hey, like, we have to be stronger and smarter about saying, and fairer to people to say, it's just, the sparks aren't flying, or, we're in it for really kick-ass moments that everybody gets into. And that, we haven't really replicated that sort of speed bump. What do you think?
No, I agree. That was exactly what I was going to say, that we've occasionally gone along with something because we thought the other person was more into it. And that helped us to strengthen our communication, which now 7 years into this, it's really great. And that's one of my favorite things and my favorite ways that we've grown through this that I never imagined would have happened.
Yeah.
It's an underrated part of lifestyle.
Right. No, it's awesome that it's been largely, I mean, like you said, from every star in the sky had to align for us to show up at the club. And that 7 years later, the approach you've taken has yielded a high percentage of really great experiences and maybe a couple of but nothing that was like tragic or really upsetting.
Yeah. And anything that would qualify for the less than optimal, we're still I mean, they're few and far between, but they're still like great experiences with great people. We're in it. One of the things, going back to the very beginning, and gosh, it's so hard not to come off as trite or cliche, but we're in it for the long haul. We're in our marriage for the long haul, and Jane, she was, we thought she was my first kiss, and I was her last first kiss, and the last person we would ever, be intimate with. And the one thing we can't replicate within our marriage is the butterflies of a first kiss, and, figuring out someone's, sort of turn-ons and things like that. And to get to have those experiences, is what gets us, tends to get us excited. And then we sort of bring those butterflies back home afterwards. And we get to, sort of relive it. And yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know if that's weird or if that's standard, but like, we really we then re-role play the experiences, and we talk about how hot it was. And, for me, a big part of it is her enjoyment and her happiness is just the added fuel on the fire for me. Like, I feel, lucky to have the experience with really great people, but it's, exponentially better when I know that she's having fun and feeling sexy and having a great time. Don't look at me like that, weirdo.
You cut out for a split second. Did you say that Jane was your first kiss?
No.
My last first kiss.
Your last first kiss. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very different. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, considering we met when I was 30, this would be people's radio or podcast image of me just changed dramatically. What's wrong with that
guy? Yeah, no, it's everything you said makes a perfect sense, and I guess maybe what I was curious about is that did either of you have any concerns or like worries like, oh, well, maybe Jane's going to meet somebody and have a really great experience and then she's not going to want to come back to me, or the same for Jay? Like, were there ever any concerns or fears going into this?
Not in that vein. It was more for us thinking, are we weird that we like this? It was more in terms with us really enjoying this and finding this very sexually gratifying.
Right.
And does that make us unusual? So
yeah, I would say if somebody goes on this journey with you, it for us, it's galvanizing. Like I hear people talk about that, but I find that it's not usually coming from a healthy place. Like when within our circles, when people talk about it, I'm like, this probably isn't for you because you're even thinking about it that way. Like I can honestly say that never really occurred to me as we entered it. And that feels weird, but I'm really trying to like think back. And more than that, it was because every experience we came out of it as like, it created like this hot post-game recap that we call them, that I was like, yeah, no, that's not. And it's probably naive of me because I'm sure this breaks up marriages out there somewhere. Like, I mean, that has to be a real thing, of course, but it didn't. Again, maybe we were naive or dumb.
Well, it sounds like a lot of it for you was just fuel on the fire. Like you knew you were going to have like the thing that you were doing or that she was doing was going to then be magnified 10x between the two of you later on that night or the next couple weeks, So, yeah.
How have you both kept yourself safe, both physically and sexually, over this whole experience?
Well, we get tested regularly, and condoms are one of our rules. I say with air quotes because rules are, I don't know that we like to think of them that way, but
but that's a non-negotiable. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair thing. That's a fair use of the word this time. That's we're definitely safe practitioners, always, and then what we follow up with a regular regimen of testing. We know people that test more frequently, but they're also more active. But we're that's been a big part of it.
We generally. I think I shared we're social swingers, and we generally get to know somebody. It's very rare for us to just meet and hook up with a couple that we just met. So more often than not, we can have a conversation in advance. So we talk to them about it. So
No, that's great. That's great. And I think that does help, right? That you get a little bit of a feel for it. You can have conversations. Maybe you have a little better gauge of what they're telling you is.
So if you can try to read somebody a little bit once you get to know them, at least that past that surface level.
For sure.
We're certainly not implying that that's a full background check, but
right.
That's why the comments are still in play, of course. But it definitely. Because of that informal vetting, we're also, less likely to slip up because we're not, drinking and then it's some, drunken hookup, more like a drunken makeout session and then hopefully another date or, another hangout. And then we can be a little more clear-eyed.
Yeah.
And then we generally do things from a physical safety standpoint, we generally are together. I shared we dabbled in hot wifing, but for the most part, it's he and I with another couple, and usually in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was curious: is there anything that you haven't done yet that is like on the fantasy list that like you're hoping someday you guys get to make it come true. And it sounds like you just talked a little bit. You've done some hot wifing and you've explored some different dynamics a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think we'd like to do a little more with the hot wife stuff because we just kind of started, and then the pandemic hit. And now, while many single men are wanting to go out on dates, I am not interested at the moment. So I think we'd like to do a little more with that. I don't know. Do you have anything you haven't told me about?
No. I don't think there's going to be a huge revelation here. I mean, I think for us now, like, we've found our personal sweet spot, which is going on adult themed vacations, having some, sort of, one thing that we've done that I really cherish, and if there was something that I would want more of, it's we've created a really great network of people in our lives that I would say are more than swinger friends, that we really have gotten to know, and in some cases we say we've fucked some friends into the friend zone. Yes. Like we've gone beyond being swinger friends to just regular friends. And so I would love to have like a bigger network. I mean, it's a really tight knit group of good people. And I think that it's super healthy. Like, those are the people we call when we want to have drinks by the pool, or, and just like have uncensored conversation. And it doesn't necessarily equal, oh, there's going to be sex. It's more like, oh, the girls can be topless in the hot tub, or, can sun, and that's sexy and it's nice, but it's a really classic no expectations. But then if the mood strikes and everybody's having a great time, it can be there. There's something really fun about, it's a Saturday afternoon, let's call such and such and come over and just make margaritas by the pool. And it turns into like a full festival, or it turns into ordering pizza and riding around on the golf cart, and just like acting like children. Like that's just a lifestyle that I dig. I think that's a little aspirational, is like more of that. But I know that's not what you were teasing. I wish I could say like, we need more gangbangs. More gangbangs in the J&J house.
No, I think having more open-minded friends is a perfectly acceptable answer.
And I think you touched on basically our dream scenario, which is exactly that. Like, you have people who can come over and the entire time can be totally quote unquote vanilla, but then they come over another time and it's not, or there's no prescribed, like, this is how it's got to be because you're these friends. And I think
you're spot on, Finn. And I think the thing that's nice about it too is, one of the things when you go on a vacation, or you go to the club, or you meet somebody on one of the websites, is, as Jane had intimated before or mentioned before, there's this check-in process. There's this, what are we cool with? What are we comfortable with? How are you feeling? Are you guys vibing? Are we vibing? Everybody, I'm sure, on every podcast, in every swinger conversation has talked about the exponentially difficult situation for people to line up right. In this scenario, boxes pre-checked. So like, it's more about, is this getting hot? I think it might be. And, and then it turns into anything else, versus, hey, I noticed you and he weren't really talking. Are you not feeling it, or what? It sort of pre-checks some boxes. And when we hang out with those friends, we do pregame a little, like, hey, if it gets hot, are we feeling it? And we kind of make a pregame call, and then we make an audible and a postgame call. I mean, what is it? Who is it? Tyson that said everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face.
Exactly. The last time we were getting together with folks and said, "Oh, we're going to see them and have fun, but nothing's going to happen beyond that." Of course, we ended up back in their hotel room. So the plans for us, anyway, plans are futile, but we still continue to make them.
Yeah,
so cheap and easy.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we love to ask people, and we're hoping you've got a good story here, is about a blooper, because they're fun, they're lighthearted, and not that you two seem to take this super seriously, but they help people realize that we all make mistakes and that life goes on.
Yes. Well,
which one do you want to tell? Because you can tell multiple in advance, and
yes,
we have two that we're very proud of.
We have a few, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little later. But we make the Swing Fashions swinger comic, and so it's pretty much all bloopers.
And most of them are very real and involve me doing something stupid.
Yes, almost all of them do.
Oh, that was a quick yes. Jay is always the jackass response.
They are almost all, they're all real stories. 99% are our stories, but now that we've been in COVID for 6 months, we're relying on other folks' stories as well. But beforehand, I was telling him one of my favorites, and it's quick. So on our first swinger cruise, we were on the sitting on the top deck because the lower deck by the pool was full, and it's clothing optional by the pool on these cruises. And so we're sitting right next to the stairs, and all day beautiful naked women are walking up the stairs, and he is kind of glancing at them. Sorry. And then that night we get into our room, we're getting ready for dinner, and one side of his face is so sunburnt with the sunglasses mark, just because he had his head turned to the left the whole entire time the ladies come up the stairs. And
and there's not enough makeup to fix that. You just have to explain that every time you meet somebody for the rest of the week. Why is only half of your face peeling? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, next time you go to the pool, you got to sit on the other side of the railing so you can turn the other way.
Exactly.
It made me also like realize how clearly conspicuous I was. Like if my neck was craned for long enough for my entire side of my face to be bright red, like there was nothing subtle about me observing beautiful women coming up the stairs for 4 hours. So I had to reevaluate my stealthiness. But I think that we were talking. So you and we four share some mutual friends with our friends from Sapphic Swingers, the podcast, and we were having wine with them last week, and we told this story. So I thought it was worth bringing back. Our very first day at one of the resorts, having a few drinks is definitely a coping mechanism to get the butterflies, to get the nervousness out. So evidently I was in just peak, like having a ball, everybody's, best friend. And we were all in this big hot tub, and throughout the course of the evening, I was fortunate enough to have made out with several of the ladies, the young ladies that were in the hot tub. Great, we get it. Everybody's partying, everybody's having a great time. I spent the rest of that vacation introducing myself to people that I had already made out with, which was awful. Like, there is nothing that makes your heart stop worse than, you're running to somebody at the buffet and they're like, hey, and I'm like, hey, I'm Jay, what's going on? And she's like, we made out for like 20 minutes in the hot tub the other night. And I'm like, I know, I just names and words and foot and mouth and things are crazy. So on the very last day of that trip, at that point I had just had to come clean. I was like, I had so much to drink. I'm so embarrassed. I had apologized to anybody, and everybody was so nice and so sweet. And we made some friends for life that weekend. Yeah. But on the last day, we stood up in the hot, stood sort of in a semicircle and just listened to stories about myself from that first night. And I'm like, oh my God, I am going to a 12-step meeting as soon as we go home.
That's amazing. And then everyone did the stories at the end. That brought it full circle, right?
Yes. It was. Yeah. I mean, because there's an instinct to play it off, and I tried, and maybe some people bought it and some people didn't. And finally, we're all in the hot tub and kind of saying goodbyes. I mean, the nice thing about that particular trip is I think that most of the people we became friends with were there for the same time, so we were sort of having our goodbye glasses of wine and chatting, and I was like, I have spent every night telling Jane how embarrassed I am about my behavior, and everybody just thought it was riotous. Like, it was nothing like aggressive. It was like fun and flirty, and like they're like, you were having the time of your life, and I'm like, I would give anything to remember that. Why have they taken that moment away?
Karma. It's punishing you.
Yes.
I think it's funny to just not to rat out Tiff and Rach, but when you told that story to them, I have a hunch that Tiff probably came back with her story that she told on our show, the blooper, where they were at Trapeze and she was in the room with somebody, and I think she like made her squirt, and then she went back to the bar like 20 minutes later and she was like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, good. You don't remember me? You just made me orgasm in the room. And she's like, totally didn't recognize you. Like, so she did the same exact thing, but at a slightly higher degree. So I imagine that you were in good company. You told that story to the right people.
Yeah.
We were swapping funny stories. They have a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you both the opportunity. I know you mentioned the comics, but I wanted you to plug it a little bit more. Can you tell, I guess, listeners what it is and where they can find it?
Oh, sure. So it's called Swing Sessions. And we're on Twitter and we're on Blogspot. And I'm sure you guys will do the links in the show notes.
Definitely.
Gosh, I started it about a year and a half ago because he works a lot of nights. We took the idea of a podcast, but I knew that I'd never be able to get enough of his time, or I don't know how you do. It takes a lot of time, and I really admire it. So the comic, it takes me time, but it's time that he's working and I'm alone, and I love the art part of it, and it's just fun for us to relive our stories and to kind of put them out on paper. So it started kind of chronicling our lifestyle journey, which is hard because every story we told you, I have to condense into like a 4-panel comic, and it takes us, 5-10 minutes to tell a story in life. So it's an interesting writing challenge. And it's been really fun. We have a nice little following on Twitter, and folks seem to really like it. Because the thing that's great about podcasts is that you get really deep into the conversation. The thing is it really condenses it. So we try to get whole concepts across in something that you can read in 60 seconds or less. So it's been a fun exercise, and it's been fun retelling our stories, and folks tell us stories, and we'll sometimes draw those out. Feel free to reach out and share your stories. And if you like our comic, let us. We love to hear from fans that are enjoying them.
One of the things I'm out of about it is Jane works really hard to stay like sex positive and body positive. And, we've met every type of person we can imagine. We've been fortunate enough to get to know. And, there's this lifestyle brings out the best in people, and we love to celebrate. And I'm really proud of her for doing is not to think too much about the current times, but it's nice to have something that's just about positivity and celebration. So
yes, and lately
definitely.
A lot of Zoom sex is the theme of the comic.
No, that's fantastic, and we kind of connected a little bit because you had reached out because you were drawing up one of our previous guest bloopers, and you. And so we're thinking you'll have to go back and draw all 130 of them now. Hopefully that.
Good.
So yeah, well, I'm just
material.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm just hopeful that the virus doesn't last that long, because if you have to resort to that, then we're in trouble. So fingers crossed.
And new episodes every Wednesday.
Awesome. Well, hey, that's
we're in line with your release date.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure, like you said, there'll be links in the show notes, and it's a fun spin on it, right? Like you said, you get to tell your story, and you get to condense it down really small and quick, and
something very unique too.
So. Thank you. Yeah, we're having fun with it.
Yeah, and thank you for doing, like you said, the body positivity and the sex positivity. The world needs more of that. So rock on and keep kicking ass.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share with listeners before we wrap up?
Well, we really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our story. I know we started this conversation talking about how we don't feel like we have a lot to share, but it's nice to like sort of go back through and talk about the experience. And it's, again, I think that these podcasts, your podcast, these types of forums are so helpful for people that, looking for some answers. And we probably thoroughly confused all of those people. So we're really proud of ourselves.
I don't think so.
No, I think,
But we told you did have an interesting story.
Right.
You were worried for nothing.
Well, and I think the thing is that in everybody's story, somebody takes something away, right? And who knows what that is, but chances of somebody listening to this and not taking anything away are pretty slim. So we appreciate you taking the time and you sharing and telling a vulnerable story with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you for providing such a great venue to do so. And it's been really lovely to meet you because I've been such an admirer of your podcast for the last, many months ago when I discovered it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. And with
Stay safe.
Yeah,
You
do the
too.
same, and we will be in touch. We will look forward to all of the comics coming out, and we'll make sure everybody gets to see them.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
And we're back. Thank you again. I know we said thank you a whole bunch at the beginning of the show, but thank you again to Jane and Jay for coming on the show and for the awesome work you do with the Swing Fashions comics. Again, links to all of that will be in the show notes, which you can find at our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, by clicking on the podcast tab.
That is true. Real quick, before we jump out of the show, we wanted to say thank you one more time to Alt Playground for sponsoring the episode. Emma, tell them about the forums.
No, I messed it up in the intro.
I know, I was giving you a chance to redeem yourself.
There's a lot of really fantastic information in the forums, so go check them out.
Tell us about the specific articles.
No,
in the
I'm not getting into that.
All right.
I'm not going to fall for your bait.
My bait?
Next week.
That's why we don't do these late at night.
I know. Next week, who are we talking to?
Zach. Oh.
You almost forgot.
No, I didn't almost forget. So if you listened to the episode a couple of weeks ago with Kat, she referenced somebody who started the orgy team at Yale. Now, we've gotten some clarification. It may or not be a competitive team, but it is a club, and you're definitely, the story is
wild,
nuts, like insanity.
Yeah.
Not even just about the orgy club, like the whole
Zach's whole story
is
full of twists
crazy.
and turns, and you're going to want to come back.
I'm listened to it twice now,
Yes.
and I still don't fully comprehend it.
Yes.
So please come back, listen to that. In the meantime, don't forget we have our meet and greet coming up in a couple of days, August 22nd.
At 10:30 p.m. Eastern.
It is $10 for you and your lovely, whoever's in your polycule. Maybe it's just you and your spouse, or you and your partner, or just you. Yeah, maybe you're a single person polycule.
Mm-hmm.
Single person polycule.
Also,
SPP.
Just to be really clear, this is not a poly event or a swinging event. It's a meeting awesome people event. So if you're just dipping your toes into like learning about non-monogamy, you can still come. Like, come join. Or if you're just curious about it and don't really know anybody, please come join. This is open to all types of people, but the requirements are that you need to be open-minded.
And really cool.
Yes.
Because I bring the cool factor down, and we need people we need some people to balance it out.
Wow.
All right. I think we've talked enough.
Okay, let's go. And don't forget our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
Reach out to us. Tell us how much you love us, and we will tell you how much we love you specifically.
And now we're actually going to stop talking now, and we'll see you next week.